All right. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Um, I appreciate the effort and the time that you guys take out of your busy days to be here with me today. Today's topic is helping extended family understand your deaf and hard of hearing child. Sometimes it can be challenging because it's unexpected that we got this diagnosis, not only for us as parents, but for extended family as well. They kind of go through like a similar journey where it's unexpected. They want to support you, but they don't know how. Um, and so this is, guided towards, helping our extended families understand the deaf and hard of hearing journey of our children. And oops, why this conversation matters so much is because, family plays a big role in our child's emotional, social, and language development. Um, and also understanding deafness or hearing loss helps everyone communicate better and avoid misunderstandings. This is about connection, not correction, learning together how to best support our child. So it's definitely a learning curve for all of us involved as parents trying to navigate, what we want for our children when it comes to making decisions about language, about therapies, about appointments, about devices. Um, so let alone family also is very curious and how they can help, how can they support. Um, and during those times, at times, comments or suggestions you might not come out right, or it's not intended to maybe hurt your feelings. Um, but family overall plays a huge role in all of us, not only our deaf and hard of hearing child, us as parents, as well. We need that overall support. We want to be welcoming to hearing differences. Deaf and hard of hearing children experience sound differently, and it's not simply less hearing. Um, Communication may involve spoken language or sign language or a combination, bimodal, bilingual, total communication. There's cued speech. There might be some children that need AAC devices, so technology assistive uh, devices for communication. Um, they're hearing devices. There's so many different options. There's hearing aids, there's cochlear implants, there's SPAHAs. Um, and, some families um, might not go with a device route. They might want to fully do sign language, and that's okay too. So the understanding that these devices do help them have access to sound, but it doesn't like fix their hearing. I know this was very difficult for my family to really comprehend my son's hearing loss. Um, I think even for myself at the beginning too, trying to understand the audiogram and what exactly can he hear and what can he not hear, and does the hearing device provide the hearing if he can't hear certain sounds? And it was definitely learning for me, let alone my family, that, you know, um, would say, well, he has hearing aids now, so he's fine, right? He can hear everything, he can hear us. So it's not that simple. And it just takes time and a lot of education and a lot of repetition. And sometimes, that does get exhausting for us. Um, but everyone learns differently. And it could be that, for grandparents, it might be a little bit harder because, they're older. Um, Education was different. So they're trying to comprehend. So it's okay if we have to repeat ourselves. It just takes time for everyone to be in sync. So I like providing myths versus facts. If you've seen a couple of my previous presentations, I like putting myths versus facts. But one thing that I would come across with my son's hearing loss was hearing aids make hearing normal. Um, but in fact, hearing aids or implants help, but doesn't restore normal hearing. Background noise and fatigue still affects understanding. And I see that with my son. Background noise affects it, even distance. If I'm in the kitchen, he's in the living room, that distance also kind of interferes with how much accessibility and understanding he can get. So those are things that we need to consider and explain to our family members as well so they can have a better idea of what that's like. Um, Another one was children who sign won't learn to talk. Um, but in reality, research shows sign language supports language development and emotional connection. Um, that's something I've heard ever since Enrique was born, which it's been 9 years. So, at first you don't know what to think, what to believe, or what is true, what is not. Everybody's giving you so many different opinions and suggestions, and that it's kind of hard to kind of figure out what is it that we want for our child and what's going to work best for our family. Um, but it is something I like to share, just in case if any families are interested in sign language, that that is a myth that they won't learn how to talk, and maybe that'll help your decisions moving forward. The other one is they can read my lips. So I've gotten this even when my son was even much younger. When he was like about 4, they would say, but he could read my lips, right? And it's like, well, like he doesn't even know how to read yet. Like, how do you expect him to read your lips? Yes, he tends to look at your lips when you speak, but I don't think my son really knows how to read lips. And that's just, it's hard work to do that, you know? So in reality, lip reading only gives you partial information, as many sounds look alike on lips. Um, so that is something you can definitely challenge yourself if you want to experiment that. You can put some earplugs in, you know, talk to somebody with try not to hear as much sound and just looking at their lips, you kind of will have a different perspective on that. Um, and I believe there is a game as well that there's like silent earmuffs that you have to read out what the card says, and the other person has to kind of try to like guess what you're saying. Um, so that is also a great way to incorporate family, to kind of have that perspective on what it's like if you can't clearly hear and just looking at lips. Um, I experienced that game when I went to Parent Institute, which is through the Illinois School for the Deaf. They had that game for us to experience, and it was an eye opener. And I think that is something you can incorporate with family as well. Um, the other one I've heard a lot is they'll outgrow it. I think it depends, right? But for me, in my cultural background, um, they would ask that a lot, like, oh, but he'll outgrow it, right? Like, would his hearing get better as he gets older? Just because, a lot of things can relate to that, like allergies. They say when you have allergies at a young age, you can potentially outgrow it. But with hearing loss, it is not the same. Hearing differences are lifelong, and what changes is how we communicate and how we adapt things. So that is one that I did a lot, and at first it was challenging. I'm not gonna lie, like that little phrase of like lifelong was kind of hard to like say it out loud, because we knew it was like permanent. Um, but if you don't feel so comfortable with that terminology, that's okay. Eventually you'll find what works for you and how you want to explain things. And that's okay. What does family mean in our journey? Family includes parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, close friends. You know, family doesn't have to be blood related. It could be really close friends, you know, community. It could be different things that it's like out of the norm of like blood relatives. You choose, we can't choose our family, right? But we can choose who we would like to be involved in our family, in our child's journey. Um, and each person plays a part through inclusion and patience and learning together. It's a learning opportunity for everyone, especially since 90% of children with hearing loss are born to hearing parents. Um, so it is definitely um, a learning experience for us as parents, for aunts and uncles, for grandparents, for siblings, um, and cousins, making sure they are included in games and we have to talk to them. Like my son's cousins, at a very young age, I said, sometimes he won't be able to hear you clearly. You'll have to repeat yourself, and that's okay. It just means he didn't hear everything you said. If you could just say it again for him. Um, and as he grew up, he then started advocating. He'll say, wait, what did you say? Or can you say that again? Or I didn't understand. Um, so he is advocating on his own, for people to repeat themselves. As well with sibling, with my daughter, we have to show her, those etiquettes about not telling brother, oh, I'll tell you later, or um, it's not important, never mind. Um, so I have to educate my daughter in telling her, no, we don't do that. We want to make sure that your brother understands what you're saying. Um, she's a preteen and she's like, oh my gosh, I gotta say it again. But it's normal, right? They're siblings, but we still want to, grab that few couple seconds just to educate. And it also brings their relationship closer, their bond much stronger, knowing that, you know, they are trying to understand each other and they're going to figure it out on how to, you know, incorporate what they need from each other. Um, but some things that supports that families can do is facing the child when speaking to. That is big one. Even the child may start advocating on their own. I know my son, when he's trying to talk to me, he tells me, he's like, look at me. Like he'll like do the little fingers, like look at my eyes. I'm like, okay, so I have to kind of stop what I'm doing to give him my full attention. Um, and that's what he needs. So learning key signs or gestures, based on, what they need, they kind of will start showing us what they need. They start guiding us on their own as well, as they get older. Creating quiet or well-lit spaces as well. Sometimes we need to, have spaces a little bit more quiet. I've noticed that a lot, especially when my son sees movies. Um, he really doesn't want a lot of noise in the background because it's kind of hard for him to follow. We also make sure that uh, closed captioning is on as well, so he can have that available for him as well, and so he could get used to it too. And well-lit spaces, really good lighting, making sure they can see us, and celebrating communication milestones. Um, so we can celebrate all together, and make them really feel special and included, that they are able to accomplish many things despite the hearing loss. That is not a reason for them not to accomplish many things in life. They can definitely do it with our support. Setting boundaries with families, that can be a little difficult for some families and for some people, and it might come a little bit easier to others. Um, for myself, it was hard to do boundaries with my family. We're very close. We're always, everybody is trying to chip in, you know, give opinions or support or comments. But it is definitely hard when you're trying to navigate your child's hearing loss. And on top of that, hearing what the doctors and therapists and audiologists are recommending, but then also hearing what your family has to say, or that they heard um, along the way that, oh, that this person knew this person that had a child with hearing loss and this happened. Um, so definitely, you can set boundaries with love. It's okay for parents to guide how others interact with our children. Like, don't yell. That means more like, don't your voice doesn't have to be louder so that our children can hear you. um and don't test their hearing. I know sometimes, our parents or grandparents might be a little curious and they want to try to see if, if they hit a pot or a pan, if they might react. So we can definitely set those boundaries, and don't face away when speaking to our child as well. I'm just making sure that, that is something that is implemented when they come over. And it does take some time because it's a learning curve for everyone. And you tend to forget, especially if you don't live with that person and if you only come over every so often. And it's okay to give gentle reminders, respecting communication choices, navigating the hearing loss of our children. There's options of communication. There's spoken, listening and spoken language. There's American Sign Language. There's total communication. There's cued speech. There's a lot. And for us as parents, us alone, we're trying to figure out what would work best for our child, and for our family. So respecting those choices do really help on not putting another burden on the parents, because they're trying to navigate that. And it might look different. They might start off with one choice and they might change it up in a couple months or a year, and they might change it up again. And just having patience and grace, because they're trying to figure out what they want for their child. And as the child gets older as well, they also will tend to express or guide us as what they prefer. um and then that's when we have to kind of go with the flow of what our child would like to do, what they want to experience. And then they ultimately make the choice on what kind of communication modes they like to do. Um, when unsure, ask the parent or the child what works best. So if you're not quite sure about something, you could definitely ask the parents. I know my brother has come to me and he'll ask me, hey, um, when his cochlear implant battery dies, like how much can he hear? And he's just curious, and I just educate him. I said, when he doesn't have his devices, what he hears is very little. Um, and that's when we do some sign language to support that whenever that happens. But it's okay to ask. And as your child gets older, it's okay to start directing the extended family towards your child. They might come to you, but if they're old enough, you can start directing family members. Well, why don't you ask him, or why don't you ask her and see what they would prefer? Um, and that also will give the child, like, oh, like they're asking me, they're involved, they want to try to be supportive. So in their eyes, they see that, this extended family is trying, or is invested in what they need. Because if we don't guide them towards our child, they miss that interaction, or they might miss that connection of, my grandpa is really trying to see what works best for me. But if I'm doing it with his grandpa, he's not going to experience that. Um, and boundaries do protect confidence, um, and not limit relationships. So it could be hard, and you know, it might take some adjusting on our extended family to understand our boundaries, and they might feel a little hurt at first, but just explaining yourself, making sure that, look, I'm not saying it in a hurtful way, but this is how you can support me. This is how my choices that I make, I can make with more confidence. So setting those boundaries can strengthen our relationship with others as well. Emotional understanding, patience. It takes time to process sound or visual information. Um, Inclusion, invite the child into conversations. Don't assume they can't follow. Empathy, remember listening with devices can be tiring. And pride, our child is not less than. They are simply navigating the world differently. Um, with this emotional understanding, I feel that our extended family can have a different perspective when it comes to what our child is navigating, and us as parents as well. Definitely lots of patience. Sometimes we have to repeat ourselves. Sometimes we'll use visuals. I know inclusion, making sure they're in the conversation. If they don't understand something, I show, like, my son, like, he'll be like, what is that? Or what does that mean? So I'll Google real quick, and I'll show him a picture so he can connect that word to the image or the object, so he has a better understanding. Um, Definitely, you know, making sure we give our child a safe place, um, so that if they need a break from their listening devices, that it's okay. Um, my son, early in the morning, he does not want to wear his implants right away. He'll tell me, he's like, I just want to rest a little more. I'm like, that's fine. When he's ready, now that he's older, he goes and he gets them, he hooks them all up and he puts them on. When he was younger, I would ask him, "Hey, are you ready to wear your implants?" And sometimes he'll be like, "Yeah," sometimes he'll be say no. Um, and just especially if we're, at a party or at a restaurant and it's very noisy, it's okay to give them little breaks. And making sure that our child is proud of who they are and, we can support them in making sure that they feel included, they feel that they are able to do things, and most importantly that we accept them for who they are, um, and the way they are and the differences they have. So how do we communicate more efficiently with our children? Um, we want to get the child's attention before speaking. That could look various ways. It could be turning on and off the light. It could be hitting the table because it's more louder, tapping them on the shoulder. Um, so getting or waving at them to get their full attention and speak to them directly, maintain eye contact, making sure there's good lighting, avoid shouting because clarity matters more than volume. There's a misconception that if you talk louder, they will understand you, or hear you better, but that's not always the case. So definitely you can talk to them as like normal, and and if they just need clarification, then you just clarify, what they need clarification on. Rephrasing if they don't understand. Don't just repeat louder again. Just re-saying what you said comes a long way, and it doesn't isolate them either, because if you do, oh, I'll tell you later, or never mind, they feel excluded, and we don't want them to feel that way. um Learning basic signs, that one, hello, thank you, I love you. Um, when it comes to learning sign language, it can be a challenge for some families to get certain family members to um, get involved or invest their time in. I would just say, try your best, offer it a couple times, see if they're interested. Um, but if they're not, I would say don't like dwell on it so much. You can only do so much. You can't, control what others do or don't do. And just to be at a place where you're okay with it. As long as you tried everything you could to provide your family members to learn sign, if that's the route you choose for your child, that some family members might be more open to it and some might not, and that's okay. Um, Encouraging siblings and cousins to model inclusion, definitely conversations early on. As they get older, you could repeat it again, just remind them again. But they end up picking up on things. I know my nephew, during his library hour, he chose a book that was learning sign language for food items. And when we went over, he was so proud to show my son, "Hey, look what I checked out at the library at my school." And so whenever you see siblings or cousins curious or want to learn more, definitely expose them to books or videos that could support, their loved one that has a hearing loss. how extended family can help. If the family chooses sign language and they're open to learning, then they can start to learn a few sign language words or phrases. It could be together, it could be independent. You can offer resources. You could offer apps or websites or library materials that can be more accessible for them and that they can review on their own time. But watching shows or reading books about deaf culture or deaf characters can really support, you know, your child with hearing loss. They're always so excited to see representation of themselves in books or in movies. I know my son really likes to see characters that have hearing aids or have cochlear implants. So um, for example, my son loves Legos, and there is a little character that has a hearing aid. There's another character that wears a cochlear implant, and those could be as well some meaningful gifts for our children as well, so they feel seen and included. Um, and supporting through therapy or appointments, that could also help so much as a parent. I know when I had to go to follow-ups or appointments for my son, my mom would stay with my daughter. So she doesn't have to like come along and be there through the whole like audiology testing. And then afterwards, the adjustments, and it would just be me and my son. And I know that they were support with my other children. Or I've also have seen where grandma or grandpa might take or aunt or uncle might take them to a therapy session, obviously with consent, that they're able to do that, especially with like early intervention. Things like that can be helpful, or might run errands for you while you're doing some appointments or follow-ups, or it might be a long day. You might have to go to like a children's hospital and it's not that close to you. And usually when they're not close, you try to take advantage of the day, and you might have 2 to 4 appointments back to back, to take advantage of that day. So family members can definitely help with either running errands or maybe a meal. Little things like that go a long way. Celebrating hearing or communication milestones. Definitely, we always want to praise our children for what they can accomplish and what they're working so hard on. And celebrating the milestones with our family members, our siblings, our grandparents, aunts, uncles. We can share that joy with them as well. And mostly show curiosity, that you're invested, that you want to learn more, but not show pity towards the child or parent or the family in general. We're learning, we are exploring different options, and eventually we will get at a place where we feel confident enough with our choices. Um, but while we're still navigating all that, just be very supportive. Something that really, really helpful is showing a family tree. We might not think about it as often, but it really helps our children make those connections between people and names and relationships. They have an understanding like, oh, my grandma is your mom? What? And then they're like blind, like mind blown. And but if we show them a family tree, they just have a better understanding of who their grandparents are through like the different generations, who their cousins and why are they their cousins. it definitely also improves their vocabulary, their understanding of family, um, and even like expressing, like if they're talking to their teachers, what did you do this weekend? Oh, I went to a birthday party. And then that's all they can tell you. But if they can tell you, oh, I went to a birthday party, my cousin's birthday party, my cousin's name is Bob, and he turned 7 years old. You're giving them much more opportunities to express themselves, to know those family members, to know them by their names, and to know them by the relationship they have with them. So this is a good exercise to do with your child, just to show like each family member. Building strong identity for our children. Being deaf is not only a medical difference, it can also be a cultural identity. It definitely takes time to get to that place of acceptance and, you know, and not only like navigating it through like a medical lens, but transitioning that as well to for like who they are. Um, it's like my son is a Latino deaf boy, but you want them to be proud of who they are and accepting of who they are, and tied to their traditions and values and customs that we can expose our child to. It doesn't have to be only or focus only on their deafness. There's so much more to life than, just focusing on that. And it'll bring us so much joy to include their deafness with all of who they are, what their family brings to the table, what customs they have. It just makes sure like that we are fulfilling all those little like holes, like that Swiss cheese, that we're making sure that they are learning a little bit of everyone. And going to deaf or hard of hearing events as well, give them opportunities to see other children that are deaf or hard of hearing, or deaf adults. Um, so they see representation in the community of a person that is deaf or hard of hearing. My son is the only um, deaf person in my family, and he does get exposure to some classmates at school, um, but we try to go to some deaf or hard of hearing in-person events, so he can meet other children, other adults, and it's just nice for us as parents as well, because we get to meet other parents that are going through something similar, that has that understanding where you don't have to explain yourself over and over again. Just those connections are so different, and can really be very supportive and just make you feel more at ease on your journey, because you have more of a sense of a community and belonging when we go to these type of events. Families do a lot of things together. They make plans, they eat meals, they play games, they tell stories, they have fun, they help each other, they travel. So family makes up a big part of our children's lives. We just want to make sure we encourage everyone to ask questions kindly, keep learning, celebrate progress together, give yourself grace. Um, through this learning curve, give your family members grace as well. And eventually, we will all get to a point where we have a better understanding. And as our children get older, they will also express what they need, not only to us, but to extended family as well. These were the references that I gathered to present this presentation for you guys. Um, And I want to thank everyone for their time, for being able to connect tonight regarding how to explain to your extended family members how they can support you, how they can support your child in navigating this journey. Um, this is my email address. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. I'm more than happy to support. As well, check out our website with Illinois Hands and Voices and our Guide by Your Side program. There's a lot of resources, even with our Sound Beginning website as well. There's a lot of short snippets where it talks about a certain topic with bullet points, QR codes, so you can explore a little bit more in depth about certain topics. And stay tuned for more webinars, in-person events. And I want to thank everyone for being here tonight.